Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. In today's lesson, I'm going to teach you about looping in R. If you want to know the basics of R, then you will have to watch my other videos that I have previously uploaded on YouTube. If you don't know what is R and what are looping, then first you will have to watch the previous lessons I have recorded on R. As I already showed you in the slides that looping is used to avoid repetition. For example, you have a vector A with elements 1 to 5 and you have another vector B with elements like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And if you are asked to add the elements of vector A with corresponding elements of vector B, then there are two ways to add them. The first way is to take the first element of A, that is 1 from A, plus the first element from B. 1 and 3 is equal to 4. And then you will have to take the second element from A and second element from B. So it will become 6 because 2 plus 4 becomes 6. And so on. But R has a built-in capability of looping, which is called vectorization. As I already have shown you in the slides that there are three kinds of looping in R. First type of looping that I'm going to show you in just a few moments. The second kind of looping, which I will talk about in my next video, are called apply family. And the third kind of looping is called the general loops or the pure R loops, which have three subtypes, that is for loop, while loop, and repeat loop. So first of all, I am going to tell you about the vectorization loop. In most of the languages, you will have to use for and while loops, the third kind of loopings. They do not have vectorization type of looping. And this is the best characteristic of R, and this is the most efficient thing in R that I like the most because you don't need looping every time in R. Vectorization and apply family are the two alternatives of looping, while other languages are devoid of such things. So let's see how vectorization works. For example, A plus B. It will add each element of A with a corresponding element of B. So let's see, A is this and B is like this. And this is the summation of A and B. So 3, 1, 4, 4, 2, 6, 3, 5, 3, 8, 6 and 4, 10 and 7, 5, 12. Let's take another example. For example, square root. This is our vector A and we want to take the square of each element of this 1 to 5. So S, Q or T, this is the command for taking the square root. So square root of A, it will take the square root of each element. While in most of the languages, you will have to use a for loop to take each element from vector A and then take the square root and then print them. So vectorization is actually a loop that runs behind the scene. Let's take another example of vectorization type of looping. For example, A square. So this will take the square of each element of A. That is 1, 4, 9, 16 and 25, which are the squares of these elements. Now let's take another example. For example, I want to add some number with each of these elements. So A plus like 9. So this 9 will be added to each of the element that A contains. 1 plus 9 is 10, 2 plus 9, 11, 3 plus 9, 12 and so on. So this is called vectorization type of looping. Now let's make it more efficient. Instead of typing a series of numbers, just type a colon. For example, 1 colon 100. This means that you are typing numbers from 1 to 100. And now if you take the square of each of numbers from 1 to 100, this is the square of each number from 1 to 100. Then there are second type of loopings in R. That is apply family, supply, apply and apply. Maybe there are other types of apply commands in R. This is called the second family of looping in R. And I will talk about these four commands in my next video in detail. The third family of loopings, that is pure loopings, and those loopings are found in almost all of the computer languages as far as I know. For those loops, we will have to open a new window first, new editor. So this is a new R script editor. You will have to type those loops here. The third family of all looping have three subtypes in R. One is called for loop, another is while loop, and third is repeat loop. Let's take an example of each. First, let's take example of for loop. To use for loop, you will have to type the command for and then the parenthesis. Inside parenthesis, you will have to take a variable. Mostly people take I as a variable. You can also type X, Y, or anything you want. But let's take I for this time. For I and then in is must here. There are different formats of for looping in different languages, but in R, this is the specific format of for loop. For I in 1 to 30. Here it means that we have a series of numbers from 1 to 30. That means we have 30 numbers. And this I would mean that I is any number from 1 to 30. That is, I is a member of 1 to 30 of this sequence. So when for loop runs for the first time, it will take the value of I as 1. And when it repeats for the second time, it will take the value of I as 2. And then the I will become equal to 3 and so on. And at the end, I's value will become 30. And that is the limit of repetition. It means we want to repeat this loop 30 times. After this, you will have to put curly brackets and then press enter. Here, for example, you want to print the value of I. So print I. So for the first time, the value of I will be 1. That's why it will print 1. And then it will print 2 and then print 3. To run this for loop, you will have to select it, or you can also press Ctrl A and then Ctrl Enter to run this code, and you will see that it has printed all the numbers from 1 to 30. Okay, now we want to take the square of each element from 1 to 30. So I means any element of this series. So take the square of I and then Ctrl A to select the loop and then Ctrl Enter to run the loop. So this will print the square of each element of the series from 1 to 30. 1 square, 2 square, 3 square, and so on. So this was through for looping. We can also do the same thing using the vectorization family of looping. 1 to 30, just simply enclose this thing in parentheses and then take the square. So this is called vectorization family of looping, and this is called the pure looping, the for looping. Now press enter here and you will see that it has printed the squares of each element in this series. But the output format of both the methods is different. It prints every element individually, while here this one prints them in the form of a vector. To make the for loops output like this, you will have to add another thing here. There is an empty vector. For example, v is equal to null. Just store it in a container. For example, d is equal to I square. It will first take the value of I as 1 and then take the square of 1 and it will store then in the container d. And then we will store the value of d in another container. We have already defined v. So v is equal to append v, store the value of d in v after length of v. And then after the for loop finishes, print the value of v. Now select this thing and Control Enter. The output will be the same as that of vectorization. Okay, let's make it simple again. Remove all these things. Now this is the simple for loop. Now let's change this thing to some string. For example, hello. Okay, what will happen now? It will print the word hello 30 times because this just means a repetition of 30 times. It will take the value of 1 and then 2, 3, 4 till 30. But as we have not asked to print value of I, that's why it will not print the value of I. It will just print hello again and again and again in each loop. So let's select this and hold Control, press Enter. You will see that it has printed the string hello 30 times. Now let's change it back to I square and run it again. Control Enter. Now let's use another loop, that is while loop, for the same purpose. For while loop, first you must define a vector. Let's suppose the name of the vector is I and its value is 1. So you must put a value in the I container, and then you will have to type the while loop. So while, and here in these parentheses you will have to type the condition. When should this looping stops? That the condition after which this loop should stop. So let's take the condition of I until I is less than 30, suppose. Let's make it 31 while I is less than 31, and then the same thing, the curly brackets, and then enter. Here we want to take the square of I, so square of I, that is square of 1, and then an extra thing that we need in while loop, which we do not need in the for loop, is that you will have to increase the value of I by 1 or by 2, whatever you want. But here, as we want the output to be identical to this for loop, that's why I will have to increase the value of I by 1. So I must equal to I plus 1. So when it runs for the first time, it will take the value of I from here, which is equal to 1, and then it will check the condition whether the value of I, which is 1, is less than 31 or not, because we know that 1 is less than 31. So it will run the loop because the condition is true. So it will print the square of 1, which is 1. So it will print 1, and then it will add 1 to I. The I value is 1, so 1 plus 1, 2. Now the value of I will become 2, and then it will check the condition whether 2 is less than 31 or not. As we know 2 is less than 31, that's why the condition is true, and it will run the loop again. As the value of I now becomes 2, so 2 power 2 is 4. So it will print the square of 2, which is 4. And then it will add another one with I, because I is 2 and then 1, so the value of I will become 3. And then 3 is less than 31, that's why it will repeat again. When the value of I becomes 30, and 30 is also less than 31, so it will again take the square of 30 and will print it. And then it will add 1 with the value of I, which is 30, so it will become 31. And then when it checks the condition, when I becomes 31, so 31 is not less than 31, which is equal to 31. That's why this condition becomes false when the value of I becomes 31. So when this condition becomes false, this loop will stop automatically. So now let's select this while loop and see the output of this while loop here. So control enter. As you can see, the output of while loop is identical to the output of for loop. You can type hello here instead of that. Instead of finding the square, you can do the same thing as we did with for loop. It will print this hello word 30 times. So select this and then control enter. It printed the word hello 30 times. So for the same purpose, you can use both for loop, while loop, and vectorization family of looping. Okay, now let's use repeat loop for the same purpose. For repeat also, you will have to take the value of I. Suppose we take the value of I1 here, and then we say we use repeat. But remember, after repeat, you do not use things like this, the parentheses, as we used for loop as well as for while loop. We directly start from this curly brackets. So after repeat, do not use these parentheses. Directly use these curly brackets. So repeat. Print the square of I, which is I power 2, and then because the value of I will remain the same if you do not add 1 with I like this, then it will neither stop nor it will change the value. So it will take the square of 1 again and again, and it will run forever because it is the repeat loop. So be careful with repeat loop as well as with while loop, because if you make a mistake in repeat and while loop, they will run forever. Let's see what happens. Select this and control enter. You can see that this is running and running. To stop repeat loop or a running command, just press this red button. It will stop. If it doesn't stop, press it again. So we have terminated this loop. With that little red button, we have terminated this repeat loop. As you can see that it is printing 1, 1, 1 because the value of I is not changing like the value of I like we did with I in the while loop. So the same thing should be done in this repeat loop as well. I is equal to I plus 1. Now the value of I will change in each loop, but again this will run forever. Let's check it again. because the value of I will increase to 2 and then it will repeat the loop, and then the value of I will become 3, as we do not see any condition here, any limit here. It is unlimited. It will run for infinite number of repetitions. So let's control enter. As you can see that it has reached to a very high number. Let's stop it. Stop. The loop has stopped. As you can see, this has taken, the loop has run for so many times. If you do not break this loop with that little red button, it will run forever and it will hang your computer. So what should we do to break this loop? The thing is to use an if command here. Instead of condition like this in while loop, here you will have to use an if command inside this repeat loop. So if I is equal to 30, here we are imposing a condition that if I becomes 30, and then as we discussed in our previous video, if you don't know how to use if command, that is the conditional command, you will have to watch my previous video. So if I is equal to 30, then break. Break is a command that breaks the loop just like we did with that red button. So this loop will run until the value of I becomes 30 and then the loop will break. Now let's select this and then press Ctrl enter. You will see the same result as we did with for loop, while loop, and then this loop. Now let's repeat all the three loops once again. First select this for loop, press Ctrl enter. It will give you the values from 1 to 900 because the square of 30 is 900. And then let's select this while loop and run it and see whether its result is similar to that one, to for loop or not. As you can see, its result is exactly the same as that with for loop. And then let's select this third loop and press enter. It didn't reach to 900. That is, it didn't take the square of 30. Why? Because we have put a condition here that as soon as the value of I reaches 30, you should break the repeat loop. Let's make it 31. Now let's run it again, and now you will see the value of 900. And now it's exactly like the while loop and for loops. So what is the difference between all these three loops? Let's copy all these three loops and paste them on a word editor. So let's compare all these three loops. Put them into three columns. Okay, now let's compare all these three kinds of loops. This is for loop, this is while loop, and this is repeat loop. As you can see, for loop is different from both of while and repeat loop. In for loop, you do not have any condition. You have condition which is called the limit condition. So here we already give number of repeats for how many times this loop should repeat. While here in both of these we have conditions. The difference between these two loops is that the condition in while loop is put at the beginning in front of while the condition in repeat loop is put at the end in the form of a conditional statement, that is if command. Curly bracket here. Another difference between for loop and while and repeat loop is that in these two loops you must define a container first in which you should store a value. So here we have defined a container I and we have put a value of 1 in them. And the third thing is increment. In both of these while loop and repeat loop you need to put an increment. That is to add one value in each repeat with the value of I, both in this while loop as well as in repeat loop. While for loop doesn't have such increment because it automatically increases the value of I and it takes the value of I from this series. That's why it automatically increases here. While here and in this loop it doesn't increase automatically. That's why you will have to put a manual increment here. So that was all for today. Thank you for watching my video. Subscribe my channel after watching the video. Thank you very much. Bye.